There comes a moment when you've exhausted all your options while simultaneously coming across a product that reinvents your notion about what an honest and high-quality company looks like. The Healing Rose was the catalyst to that very moment for me. The Healing Rose Company is a female-owned Massachusetts CBD company based out of Newburyport that prides themselves in using only the best USDA-certified organically sourced ingredients for their vast line of therapeutic products. Their line stretches from lip balms, tinctures, skin balms, roll-on oils, and bath products. Their transparency places them above the rest with third-party tested results showcasing their intolerance to toxic pesticides, solvents, metals, and harmful elements. They provide full-spectrum CBD in many of their products, excluding their tinctures, which carry a broad spectrum profile, ideal for not having to worry about any low-level THC, which is common for many CBD products. That one's my favorite, and it's good on the palate. Full spectrum means that they extract from the hemp plant an array of different therapeutic cannabinoids along with CBD and their profile terpenes. The combination results in a greater outcome of healing and relaxation for any individual's needs. Whether you are an athlete looking for any recovery advantage, a patient in need of some relief to remind yourself that you are still a warrior, or someone who sees the frontiers of life with a little reserve and want to calm the mental storms that keep you from personally exploring, the Healing Rose CBD Company is here for your full body and mind optimization. Please visit thehealingroseco.com to explore their diverse line of products and support one of New England's best rising stars in an industry where ethics are fundamental, and a company like this will only be found sitting at the throne of it all. Use the code SAGAS, S-A-G-A-S, for 10% off your purchase. Again, visit thehealingroseco.com and use the promo code SAGAS at checkout for 10% off your purchase. To the many martial artists, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and thinkers, how often, for your own sake, would you love a symbolic reminder of your mentality and the perfect dichotomy to match? Murder Nerd is an independent clothing apparel line that represents the sharp, relentless focus towards personal growth and athletics. It embodies the vitality of their creative owners and the network of people who run on the same frequency. Why not elevate your frequency in comfort and style? Visit www.murdernerdsfitness.com for their personal line of shirt and hat wear. Enter the promo code SAGAS, S-A-G-A-S, for 10% off your purchase. Again, visit murdernerdfitness.com and enter the promo code SAGAS for 10% off your purchase. All right, we're back at it. Back at it. Let's see. So, all right, there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm not going to pretend that I am the most appropriate person to try to unpack this. So this is all just coming from a very curious person. And I have to be very mindful of discussing this idea, because I won't do my well-intended curiosity any justice if I just kind of, I don't know, if I don't explain myself well here. And like I said, there's a lot of details to this, and it's not so much that I'm nervous, but I'm hesitant to address this, but I feel like as I give it more thought, it is something that we really all should be at least aware of, because it's an idea that's going to eventually reach all of us. And oh man, I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to get into this, and I'm going to try to be very calm about it. This isn't going to be ranty, but there's something that I've been hearing things about for the last, I'd say 9 months maybe. And, yet again, of course, I get curious about something. And then I hear something on the news, and then idiot boy as the president all of a sudden says it. He talks about something that I think triggered people to ask themselves, what the hell is he talking about? And what he ended up saying was something about this idea called critical race theory. And the second he said it, I'm like, you son of a bitch. You ruined it. You ruined any potential healthy dialogue about this super dense topic. Because now, as I bring it up, I'm sure this whole thing is going to become popularized, and everyone's going to take their stance on it, and blah, 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 blah. And, it's just going to be another point of separation for just people. And, at the core of this is really why I bring this up, is to not divide us. And I'll explain this at the end if I can manage my way through this semi-gracefully. But so a very skeletal version of this, because they teach this idea in academia. There are classes in college for this. But what's gaining speed is that this philosophy called critical race theory is now, they're monetizing this and making money off of this by introducing classes and trainings, couple-day trainings in people's workplace. Whether, they might call it diversity training or something like that. I don't know. But it's very strange. There was one example where they had a bunch of employees that were white employees or Caucasian, whatever. And they had to write apology letters to all of the different minorities in their company or in their office. And it wasn't so much to the people themselves, to the actual people themselves, but to the greater race of to the greater ethnicities of these people. And I mean, does that sound strange? You're in a training and all of a sudden you need to write an apology letter to people? Why is this taking up time in your workplace? And what is this supposed to teach these people? So I keep running into these weird scenarios. So I try to give myself time, and I'm still trying to actually learn about it. And I'm trying to learn about it through this idea of all right, my gut instinct is that this is something positive, right? That this is something that it's going to open up good dialogue between people and expand people's thinking when it comes to their social relationships with people. And I guess maybe try to create a better context for people so that we can all kind of I don't know, get a grasp of other people's experiences in their life, right? And that all sounds good. It sounds very good, but as I look into the history of where this comes from, because it started out as something called critical theory, and I forget what country it was. It might have been from Germany, Frankfurt, Germany, right? And this has been around for a while, and as it evolved into something called critical race theory, the very bare bones of it has something to do with looking through the world through the lens of the idea of oppressor and the oppressed, and that all minority groups are oppressed, and that off of their backs countries and wealth and all of these things have been accumulated by their corruption and enslavement and what would you call it? I don't even know. Just like taking advantage of these people, right? And the oppressor are Caucasians, whites, I guess. And that it is a way to kind of turn the tides when it comes to racial relations. And there's a lot more to this, and it's like there's just so many weeds that you can kind of get into with this. And it's just strange because it's like the more I look into this, you know, there's this thing where it's like you can't be a non-racist, which I think most people are. It's that you have to be anti-racist, and there's an entire ideology that's actually constructed around what that means, that you have to abide to, and there are different hierarchies and all that. It's a system. It's a system of turning the tides. You know, and they're teaching this in colleges. They're trying to teach this to children. Like they want to teach this to young children. And it's strange because it's like it's a tactic where if you don't want to, if you have any questions about this, you're going to get jumped on. You're going to get jumped on, and people are going to raise an eyebrow to you and wonder, why are you questioning this? And they'll make some very bad, idiotic leaps about whether you're a racist yourself or a bigot yourself, just because you have questions about an anti-racist theory like this. And if your children should be learning these things, right? Like, I see all these books coming out now. And believe me, I actually have some in my house. But there are some that are more extreme than the ones that I have. And they're children's books. And in a way, they're trying to make aware of people's... It's a lot of social justice type of like talk in these children's books, trying to make them aware of situations and people's backgrounds, and putting people's skin color really at the forefront of all these conversations. And I'm like, I thought the conversation used to be around that, like, the innocence of children and the beautiful way that they are naive to the world does make them colorblind. So unless you have horrible parents, you know, if you have a child that mingles and has a good circle of friends who are diverse, like, everyone feels the same, you know? Everyone feels like they're friends, and that there's nothing going, and there's nothing beyond that. And if you get mad, you just get mad over actions, and that's it. But if we start educating these people under the assumption that it's going to help them and make them anti-racist, like, introducing race into their ethos. Like, you're making them aware of something that they weren't aware of before. And I don't know if we have enough data to show that that's actually beneficial to kids, because their default is to not have any assumptions about anybody just because of the way that they look. They play, they love, they fight, all on an equal plane. And it's only through the conditioning of just bad information as you get older that you start to construct these different biases towards people, which most of them obviously turn into stereotypes and become incorrect and wrong and racist the farther you go down. And it's like, I don't know if that's a good idea to give allowance to a academic environment to teach my daughter about racial relationships, because I don't know if I agree in the way that they actually are doing it. Because the problem with this critical race thing is that, like, it by default in this theory, which is all that it is, it's just a theory, which means that we should be able to question it. It's just a way that people look at things. It's not how everyone even looks at things, nor should they. But the problem is that at the core of this theory is that it is the Caucasian that is the oppressor, that is the one that is holding all of the resources and construct all the mechanisms as to how wealth is made and opportunity is created, and that everybody else is kind of a mouse under the boot that you have control over. And so, like, I don't know if I want my daughter to learn in that way, because, for a lot of reasons, but like, does that not start to construct a different hierarchy of like weird victimhood? Like, if you announce that one is the arbitrator of wealth and information and history and all of these things, and that they have advantage, they call it privilege, whatever it is. I mean, does that not make the starting point above everyone else? Like, these kids aren't going to see themselves or their white friends as better than. But now that you've told them that, and told them that everyone else that's of different color are people that are going to struggle against these people to gain resources and gain opportunity and all these things, like, have you not just assigned all these people as less than and these people above? Because, for one, that's just not true. That's just not that's not how you should look at your relationships, because now it's going to be at the forefront of like everything. Like, now that you have the idea, now it flavors everything that you do. Where if you never had that flavor to begin with, everybody comes off to you just on an equal level. And I just don't know if that's a good idea to teach kids, but they're trying to do this. And it's just it just creeps me out. It creeps me out because if you want to have a voice and have a conversation about this, you might be labeled as something very, very bad. And that's not good. That's very religious in how you're trying to stifle conversation about this. And it really does prey on people's decency, because that's what it is. Everybody's decent, man. Everybody wants to do good. Everybody's here to try their best to help each other to whatever degree that is, no matter what color you are. And if you want to say that that's not true, then like, you're hanging around too many like fringe racist, because that is the minority. It is the minority. You probably haven't met one person like that in months, if not years. And if you do, they're silent. And it's like, then let them be on their fucking stupid ass way. Because, like, they know better to not say shit. And, like, I don't know. I don't, like, I run into scenarios where I was the point of ridicule. Like, you know, I didn't know, like, you don't know these bad words. You don't know this idea of just like separatism when you're younger, you know? I didn't know what a wetback was. I didn't know what a spick was. I don't know any of these things. And then someone told me, right? But then along with that, someone also told me that it's that person that's bad. It's not that all people that look like that person are bad. It's just that that person's bad. And there's bad people no matter what shade you are. But there's more good people that overlaps all of that. You know, so it's like, I got called some of this shit. And I don't know. Luckily I got a good explanation about it. And to me, it was the correct one, where it's like, no, that's the individual that's saying that to you. That's an individual that, you know, has decided to just like have a bad heart, you know, and has had some fucked up conditioning. But that doesn't mean that the next person that looks like that it thinks that way about you, you know? And it's good to learn that early on. And I learned that, and it wasn't a huge thing. It was incredibly uncomfortable when it happened, but, you know, it never followed me, other than knowing that people are individuals, and that's how you should look at people. And not in this kind of like group way, like this critical race theory thing is, because that's what it feels like. It looks like it's making you look at everybody in their groups. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is like the opposite of an anti-racist kind of movement. Like, aren't you supposed to look at the way people act and treat each other on a very person-to-person basis, so that you construct your opinion about that person? But instead, we're looking at like, these are oppressed people, these are oppressors, and nothing that has to do with just individuality. It's all about kind of what group that you're into, and what your grievance is, you know, or what your problem is. And it lumps everybody together. And it's just messed up, man. And it is too bad that the president actually brought it up, because it is something that should have a good, healthy dialogue, because this is something that really does need a good, healthy conversation around, because I see it as actually being dangerous, in the sense that, like, I don't know if people are following through with contemplating the long effects of this. Like, what is the end game? Is the end game to like reach this point of almost like revenge on on the white race, so that now they are the oppressed? But then the tables are turned, and now the oppressor. So how do we apply critical race to when that happens? Because I know in a good 20 years, Caucasians are going to be the minority in this country, right? And that can be a good thing, right? We built a foundation on just the idea of like that old saying, the melting pot, right? this beautiful place where we can kind of experiment on just how we get along, how we get together, how we mingle, how we introduce each other to different cultures and worldviews and all that stuff. And that's amazing. And that's what makes this place so great. But it's like these fucking loud corners of these identity politics. They bring things to the surface which are dangerous. And they're such a small group, but they're so fucking loud that you start to think that they are the representation of an entire group of people. It's the same thing with politics. And it's just not good, because what is the end game? Right? What is the end game? Because what you're going to do is, like, you're going to shame people for something that they never even knew they needed to be shamed over, because they were non-racist. And now you're inundating them with all of this pseudo-intellectualism about the hierarchies of different levels of oppression and oppressed people, and that they are the perpetuators of bad systems and hate. So what's that going to do? That's going to make a lot of people feel like their back is against a wall. And what's going to happen, like in the medical field, there's something called the paradoxical reaction phenomenon. And it happens a lot, unfortunately, and it can suck. But like in a very simple way, or a simple way of looking at it, it's taking like a medication that's intended to help a certain symptom, but actually makes that symptom worse, right? So you have problem with, but then you take opioids, and the opioids actually give you a paradoxical reaction, which actually makes your pain worse. Like, that's fucked up. That's a dysfunction of pathways in the body. And I see that happening with this, because it can happen. You're going to get the opposite of what you intended to do, was to somehow bring people together and make people more aware of each other, but you've constructed this whole weird infrastructure that demeans an entire group of people. So when they feel that way, they're going to get together, grow animosity towards the idea, and what you're going to end up creating unintentionally and unfortunately, I think, is a greater movement of like nationalism, right? Or white nationalism. That's terrifying. We're trying to get rid of that bullshit right now. Because you can't just shame people and tell people that they have to think a certain way, or you are this. You can't do that to people, especially well-intended people, because that animosity is going to kind of fuck up their functions of thinking, and they're going to want to retaliate in some way, and they don't know how to, because even questioning this is going to turn you into a bad person. And I feel like they're going to get together, and when you put somebody against the wall, they're going to react. And what's going to swell up and bubble up is another heavy movement of this like nationalistic way of thinking. And it's going to spiral into, like, I don't like saying this, but like, is a race war really possible in this day and age? Like, you don't think it could be. But all of these weird mechanisms, like, I don't even think these people know that they're engaging in steps that are echoes of very, very bad moments in history, right? When you break down the intersections of communism and the Stalin era, and how they pitched people against each other in that era, and just what that turns into, right? You're trying to demolish power with more power, right? This is kind of like an eye for an eye thing. And I don't get how they don't understand that. And this is a real thing. I didn't think this was real, and I'm reading about this, I'm watching videos. I'm seeing things in schools. I'm seeing things in elementary schools. And it took me a while to kind of, and I'm still trying to understand this, because it's like I said in the beginning, it just, initially you feel like, oh, this is a good idea. But the more you see the framework of it, and the more you see the unfortunate results of how it makes certain people feel, you can play this thought game of like projecting, what are the possibilities of this? What are the unintended consequences of what this is? And it's not good. It's not good on how it's going to engineer in the wrong way children's mentalities towards each other and race and all these ridiculous hierarchies. But never mind people who have already kind of like, worked on who they are and feel that they're doing good in the world and that they've been on the right side of history, and all of a sudden in one little 2-hour training they're on the wrong side of history. That's scary. That's really scary. And it's like, and the whole thing breaks apart anyways, because it's like, all right, so like they have this kind of system where it's like Caucasian and then male. Like these are the two main oppressors in this whole theory. So it's like, well, what am I? I'm a guy, so I'm the oppressor. Yeah, but you're Nicaraguan. So does that mean I get a couple points in the oppressed? Like, where do I fall in this intersectionality thing? Like, where do I fall in this? Does my daughter get like extra points because she's a female and half Nicaraguan? So like she gets 2 stripes on her like oppressed belt. Like what, like how does this work? Like all of these just different awkwardly woven mechanisms on making this theory work, right? And in a weird way, it does work. It works in this very weird, like parasitic way, because you can't do anything about it the second it's latched onto you. It's within a system where you can't say anything about it because you're racist if you do. Well, that's a very weird starting point to come from, or to move from. And I don't know. I mean, I hope this doesn't like piss people off or send the wrong message, but in the end, it's like, I really am just asking questions because we should be able to look at these things from a lot of different points of view, because you can't just let ideas run wild, because they shift society, and society can move in ways that are not correct, right? And not healthy, which results in people being hurt that really shouldn't be. And I think this is a hard one to kind of sit back and try to have a good conversation about, because it traps your decency. You're a good person, but you're not a good person like this. And if you don't agree to be this kind of a good person, then you're not your initial good person, if that makes any sense. It traps you. And it makes you scared to speak up. But it's like, if you look at this and give it enough time, you can see that it doesn't work and it doesn't make sense. And the data shows that when you even bring these diversity trainings into your workplace, people end up growing their own bias because they leave that diversity training feeling bad about themselves. So yet again, you're getting the opposite result of what you went in there to actually do. So we don't need these. These diversity trainings based around this theory is actually separating us. It really is. And no, it's not separating the racists from everyone else, It really is separating us. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know. But I'm not surprised, because when people fear ridicule, they fall victim to just their bad thinking. Like, people just think, unfortunately, they don't think very well. And it gets worse when you become afraid. And I see it. Because there's a lot of people that adopt this in this very evangelical way. And it's like, but the holes in the system are so apparent. How do you not see that? And it's like they're afraid that they're not going to be a good person. Like, you're still a good person. You're still who you were, just with the questions of, can we re-engineer this idea to a place where, I don't know what you would call it, that's more inclusive, that's less divisive, right? Because you just want to do the protocol and get everybody to think a certain way, but you're leaving an entire demographic out in the wind, letting them cultivate their own animosities to come back and do something bad. But you don't care, because this is all about, like, I don't know, revenge? I don't know what this is. And believe me, I know my history, and it's a bad history that we have here. But in this modern day, like, I've never seen more people get along from so many different places and share so much beautiful culture with fashion and music and food and ideas and spirituality and all of that. It's amazing, and I love it. It's so awesome. But this type of stuff is going to regress us. It's going to bring us back. And it's going to be very dangerous. And, I don't know. I bring it up because it's just such a powerful thing, and I hope I came across just curious about it. I'm not against the sentiments of these things, and I feel fucking angry that I even have to explain myself to idiots that would want to jump on the thought that I'm something that I'm not because I have questions. But that's okay, because I know where I'm coming from. I know exactly where I'm coming from. So none of these kind of labels are really, they're just not true. And, and it's going to be at your front door at some point, because if this wants to continue going, then your kids are going to learn this stuff. And don't you think you should be able to teach your kids in your own mindful, graceful way about relationships instead of schools? And having them show them this entire infrastructure of all these people that are victims, and all these people that should do this and do that, and that all these people are shameful. You're teaching children this. So now that is going to be the headline above everyone that they interact with now, where before that didn't exist. I'm telling you, to me, there's a real projection of like a paradoxical reaction to this shit. And I don't know, maybe it's got to just be looked at a little better, And I don't know. We'll see. I don't even know if I'm going to put this one out, because I know it's like touchy, but it's like, there's no reason to not talk about it. We can talk about things. We can explore things, take a look at stuff, I didn't make a case that we shouldn't be looking towards advancing good race relations. We have to right now. We have to. And I think I'm actually bringing this up because I think it's making it worse. it is making it worse. I am for their actual initial intention, but the means to which they get to where they want to go is really bad. So like, I'm on their side and not on their side at the same time. So I don't know, just something I have to try to address, I guess. So, alright guys, peace and love. Remember, we're all brothers and sisters, okay? Seriously, what the fuck?